Welcome back, ladies and gents, to this crazy Sportster project that we got. So I think we're just going to kind of pick up where we left off on this bike, to be honest. Don't really have a plan right now. I know when we left off, we got the engine back together, got the transmission back in the bike. Hopefully they both work like they're supposed to. We did remove some more parts, and of course we did some degreasing on it. So now I think what I'm going to do is we're just going to start doing some of the detailed cleaning on it. Like I said, I don't have a plan. We'll just kind of go from there to see what all we can get done. So let's just get busy. So we did like an initial, or we'll call it rough clean on the bike. Degreased it, sprayed it down outside in our last video, but that's not good enough. We're going to take it a step further. So what I like to do, get you a cleaner. I just use the simple green. You guys have seen it in my videos before. Just some cleaner, rags, a brush, just your basic stuff. A lot of elbow grease. And I just like to go over everything I can to get all this gunk off. There's still so much just junk and crud that's on this bike that we didn't get with the water hose. And I probably could have got it if I kept at it, but I'm going to be taking this stuff apart anyway. And then as we go, speaking of taking things apart, what I'll do is remove fasteners, remove stuff like this, might even remove this bracket right here, and just kind of, that helps to really clean this stuff up. Because the idea is, let's try to make it look as good as possible. And if you can really get your hands on every part and clean it up, and then polish it when you're done, it really makes a difference. But let's get started. And of course, this is nothing that is glamorous or fun at all. So we're not going to show every bit. This video would be way too long and way too boring. Oh, and make use of any cardboard you get, since everybody, it seems like in the world, has stuff shipped to them all the time. Put that cardboard down, it'll help you out. Or get you some kind of a pan or something, because see all this gunk that's falling right now? It's pretty gross. I don't know if you can hear that on film, but that is just crud, gunk that's just dropping. Move this right here. So see, like this axle adjuster right here, it's pretty nasty. Now, you don't have to clean this stuff up, it's obvious, but if you take the time to clean up even the little nut that's on here, these threads, and this little end plate right here, it really makes a difference when you walk up to the bike and you look at it. But we'll just take all these little pieces, and I'll just go ahead and soak them down now and just work with them on the workbench later, or clean them. Whatever, I can't talk, you know what I mean. And I have not decided yet if I'm going to remove this oil tank or not. I still got to get to these lines, which I'm probably going to get to right after we clean the rear section of this bike. This spot in here was pretty bad. And I am not a fan. If you watch my other episodes or videos, you know this. I am not a fan of putting covers on this stuff, because when you put covers on it, it makes stuff underneath it start to rust. I have seen that so many times. I know a lot of people like to do it, and that's fine, that's cool. But I do think there's some situations where it makes sense. But of course, my opinion, 'tis all. Looking at this right here, where these oil lines are, because I don't want to pull this tank. I do think I'm going to have to pull this starter. I don't want to do it, but we don't have the primary in yet. I just got the cover on it. I just put the cover on so we could spray it off. But these oil lines go right underneath that starter, and they're actually lodged underneath there pretty good, which means getting the starter back in is going to be quite exciting. But unfortunately, I think we got to pull this out, so we'll do that. We'll jump on that here in a little bit. This thing right here, you know what? I think, how are these bolts back here? Boy, they're bad. The head of these bolts for this exhaust mount are just covered in stuff. I think I'm going to pull this exhaust mount off. I think it would make sense. Let's get it up around the workbench. Man, it's chunks of stuff. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but stuff is just falling. They get pretty grimy. Get on there. There. Actually, it's good. It's coming loose. One thing I've always said, though, is I really do believe when things are caked on this much with grease and oil, it kind of preserves stuff. I mean, yeah, you got to clean it all off, but like these bolts and fasteners underneath here, even though they're nasty, you clean them up, they're still in good shape. Well, there are a few rust spots up here, though. These bikes are notorious for rusting right here, though, where the seat's always sitting. But there's a few areas I might actually try to rattle can this section back here. I don't know. Might be worthwhile. I don't think it would make it look any worse. Gross. Oh, this one's nasty. Look at all that gunk in there. Good grief. That is that is a lot. Oh, one other thing that I noticed too. So this one right here was backed out. If you remember, first video, it was just kind of halfway out, but the actual Torx bit head's still good on this one. But this one is so bad. Somebody slotted it for a flat tip to remove it. Now I've done that before, so maybe I worked on this bike before. I don't know, but it is jammed in there. It's not coming out, and actually where they slotted it so bad, it's going to have to be drilled out. So I'm going to be leaving it, which is probably the wrong thing to do. That's fine. But the pads are in outstanding shape. So we're going to let her go. And we're going to go ahead and remove this starter to make life a little easier. Oh, good. That came right off. And then our main cable right here can just stay on there because, you know, it's going to nothing right now. And if you watched the last video, you'll know why the primary drive is out. We had it sealed up just so we could degrease it outside. That was pretty loose actually, but these are a low torque spec, so good. Somebody didn't over tighten these. Makes you nervous sometimes. Oh, I can't see these. I can't see these bolts. Looks like somebody left the washer off of these bolts. Doesn't surprise me. Why should I even be shocked at this point with this thing? It should come on out. There she is. Easy to remove when everything else is off the bike. Now we've got some good access. So a few things. You can see we pulled the starter. Somebody did, I mean, I don't know why I should be shocked at this. Somebody just kind of took the starter off and put it back on and reused the old gasket. There is gaskets behind this, believe it or not. You can see it flaking off right there. We will replace on that later. But for our lines here, and here's something that was kind of concerning me, and now that I can see it, it's concerning me a little bit more. So first of all, our leak is right here, one of our main leaks. You can see, I mean, you can just replace this with another clamp and it would probably fix it. The lines themselves are actually in pretty decent shape. I mean, they're pretty pliable. They move pretty good. You know, you can kind of squish on them with your fingers. They don't seem dry rotted. I mean, they seem like they've got more life left in them. But I've got some stuff by the foot. The challenge is you can't make this 90, I don't think, with what I've got. And you don't want to just have this kink up and not, you know, be able to deliver oil through there. So I'm going to look to see if somebody makes molded lines for this. I doubt they do. I do know there's some, you know, kind of high-end expensive stuff you can buy, but, you know, we're not doing that on this bike. No way. So we're going to keep doing some cleaning on it. We'll start in this area here, and then I'm just going to make a judgment call on these lines once we get done with cleaning it. Well, this area in here will not be seen. We're going to do kind of we're going to clean it the best we can, but there's no need to go too crazy with it. Might have to get some brake clean up in here too on some areas. See how a little brake clean does. Oh yeah, that's making a difference. Brake clean for the win. That's helping. I've said before, I don't like to use too much brake clean because it's just nasty. But it needs it in this situation. Meaning it's nasty when I breathe it in. This removed. I think this will let us get these wires out of the way a little bit. Oh yeah. This is all cleaned up through here. Looks nice. I think it'll look pretty good when we get it done. Can't be as bad as it was. Now this will be seen. We're going to work on this a good bit. Luckily our cylinders are in pretty good shape since we had those off. And the heads, not too bad. Got to get on the rocker boxes, but that'll be a lot of... We'll mainly clean these up whenever we do the polishing on it. Same with this cam cover. I could actually remove this voltage regulator pretty easy. I got the stator already off and disconnected. It would just be one wire. Oh, and it's got... Shocking, it's only got one bolt holding it on. Uh-oh, everything fell. Well, there it all goes. There went all my wiring. You know, with that voltage regulator disconnected, I think this will all just, this will all just come out. Now we can strip the bike of every piece of wiring. So this was essentially it. This is all the wiring that was in there, plus that little fuse block we pulled off. This regulator is actually aftermarket. And of course that wasn't even tight. There we go. I gotta fish this thing out of here. I needed to reroute this anyway. I didn't like how it was wrapping around the frame on the bottom. So actually kind of good. And we can get it all cleaned up. Now I have a little better access for stuff. Our little oil pressure switch, the oil pressure switch for these bikes is right up under here on the bottom. And you got one wire that would go up to the, I guess it would be on the speedo on this bike, not on the dash. There wasn't a dash. But we have no oil pressure lights, so number one, I want to try to figure out how to keep that from leaking, which I might be able to just tighten it up a little, or I can replace the switch. Don't know. And I'd like to get at least a basic light, you know, something wired up for when we start to fire this thing off, because I want to know if I got oil pressure. I can check for oil flow without checking pressure. It would be nice, wouldn't it? Luckily, I got new rubber for this already. There's another one. Well, I think it went down there somewhere. This top clamp, though, up here, that's aluminum, will clean up really, really good. Usually these come around pretty good. Makes for a good look. I think we are about there. Just for our initial clean. Still got to do a lot of polishing and a little paint touch up here and there. But nothing we can't handle. Let's see if these tank mounts are loose. Well, get the right socket. That would help, first of all. Let's try again. See if our tank mounts are loose. No, actually, pretty good. Remarkable. And there's one up in here. Oh, that one's actually loose. Well, there you go. There it is. There, now she's good. Not a bad start on the cleaning. I am glad we got down there. Got that starter out of the way. Wish I could have cleaned that more, but it's just not worth it. It's going to be hidden. Doesn't really matter. Also hate all these rust spots everywhere. I don't know if I'm going to try to rattle can that or not. Probably just do some touch-up paint. We'll see. It would have made sense, I guess, to pull the engine and tear the whole frame, strip it down, but I'm not doing all that. No way. Engine's coming around pretty good. We still got a polish on the cam chest cover and rocker boxes. And any fasteners or stuff we removed, we'll clean that separately up on the workbench. And then, for example, like here, these guys right here, these will just be replaced because, you know, when you look at it, your eyeballs just kind of go right here. These got some rust in them. And plus, since this is not a head breather bike, makes it nice and easy. Front end, as I said earlier, came out pretty nice. Still got to work on the fork sliders, of course, but those will really set it off when we get that done. This side over here actually came out better, I think. Pretty nice down there around the primary. We still got to polish on that primary cover, which will make it look even better. And back here cleaned up pretty nicely. Happy with it so far. Working on some small parts up here on the workbench. So took this off right here. This is exhaust bracket. See, I don't think I'm going to bother painting this because it's mostly hidden, but this was actually full of a bunch of crud, but just did a little cleaning on it. Just makes it look a little bit nicer when it goes on the bike, just a little more presentable. And then small stuff like these axle adjusters right here. So on this one, obviously clean. This one I did not. It's still covered in gunk. I mean, you don't have to clean this area because it's hidden, but all I did was just hit it with a Scotch pad, some steel wool, and then on the end right here, actually hit it with a little bit of polish. Came out pretty good. Show a side by side here. And not necessary, but when you think about it, when you see that from the back of the bike, it's, you know, the little details add up. So using that same method over here on the bike, back here, we hit this pivot bolt here for the swing arm. Came out pretty nice. I think this sucker was actually covered pretty much in just black gunk, so you couldn't even see it, but didn't do any of the polishing on it, but just the steel wool alone really made a big difference. So liking that. I know a lot of people, I've said it before, you put the covers on there and you can do the covers. I'm just not a big fan of those. I just kind of like that natural look myself. Over here on these lifter blocks, the 4 bolts, cleaned them up, did the same thing. This one right here was really rusty, and I think this one had some rust as well. So this rust will probably come back. I'm sure it probably will. But all you got to do is just hit it again like you did before. Let's see what a little polish does on these rocker boxes and cam cover. Not sure how revealing this is going to be. These things were pretty rough, but it does. Well, it looks a little better. It's not too bad. She's got a little shine on her, but still got a lot of spots. That's fine. This bike, man, I think anything would make this bike look better. This is a rough one. As I just commented to somebody online that made a comment on one of the videos. This bike this bike was probably not too far off of just being parted out. Let's be honest. And for the other rocker box, I'll do that one off camera. No need to do them both right now. Oh, this is looking pretty darn good. If anybody has a trick to, you know, what you would do to these or these before you do any polishing, put it in the comments. Sometimes I'm very hesitant to try a whole lot of stuff on these just because I know once you can really mess this aluminum up. And once you do that, it's kind of ruined. But if you got any tips and tricks, put them in the comments so we can all learn, because we are always learning every day. Don't ever stop learning. You don't want to do that. And don't ever get to a point where you think you know everything because you don't, trust me, because I know I sure don't. I don't know why I'm getting all like philosophical and crap. You know what I mean? Well, I made a judgment call on these oil lines, and of course, I went the easy route, the lazy route. I'm just going to put these clamps on there. I have a feeling I might end up regretting this. What I think I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go ahead and just throw a quart of oil in the bike. And that'll allow me to see if this feed line, because this is the feed, that'll allow me to see if this is leaking. It'll allow me to see if this drain line is leaking. And then I can see if it's leaking down here where the main feed meets the oil pump. At least that's my theory. Won't help me on the return, but at least that way I can see if there's a leak before I start putting everything back on. And there we are. All right, that'll do it. We're going to move on to these fork sliders, see if we can't do some lower slider beautification here. Did not realize these were that bad. Huh. That's pretty nasty, actually. That's like dry rotted and coming apart. Well, all right. Here's a better look at these guys right here. That's pretty nasty. You can look, they're kind of dry rotted, coming apart. I can almost just peel this up with my, yep, just coming up with my hand. See if we can take a look at that seal. Oh yeah, that's bad. Look at that. They're definitely leaking. It wasn't showing on the bike on the outside, but that's pretty bad. So fork seals will be replaced. We'll add that to the list. Not a big deal. It's a pretty routine thing. We're going to kind of move forward and just keep cleaning these up. That's fine. We can get to the, we'll pull those apart later and get those fork seals replaced. But you know what, though? I'm glad we saw it. And if anything, it's just something else to this bike that'll help it out a little bit. I guess if I didn't take stuff apart, I wouldn't have more stuff to fix. But these definitely got to be fixed. So back onto the cleaning. So what we're doing on these fork sliders is I'm actually going to start off with an 80 grit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 3 strips like this. I'm going to do 80, 320, and then 2000. Now, that's just the, you know, the grit I chose. You can use different types of sandpaper. You could probably do this also with a Scotch pad. I'm sure there's plenty of different ways to do it. But all we're going to do is just get this back down to the base so we can polish it when we're all done. It is something that you're going to want to have to keep polishing once you do it. It's not going to be as good as like chrome, but it really makes them look a lot better. Really kind of helps dress these up. Let's see, we'll just start like this. And I learned this trick from a guy. Somebody had a YouTube video, was doing this on a bike, and I thought, man, this is the way to do it right here. You can see that's already taken that down. That's good. Just keep at it. Now, one thing you can get on these, when you run this like this, when you go around this, you know, you run the sandpaper like this, you will get lines. You might be able to see them on camera. You can probably see them close up whenever we're done. I like to just try to be consistent. So, you know, like you're going to have to hit some of these areas at different angles. You're not going to be able to go like this around, you know, right here. But just be careful. You may not want to go up and then across and all that, because then it'll kind of look like a crisscross pattern that you don't want. But the finer you get on the sandpaper, and then once you get to the polish, it gets rid of a lot of those. You can still see it, but the results are still usually phenomenally better than what you had. Okay, we're going to move on to the 320 here. This is when you'll really start to notice this kind of smooth out. You can see it already looks pretty good. It already looks even because it got rid of a lot of the spots, but it's still pretty rough because that wasn't 80 grit. I mean, I suppose you could leave it like that, but I wouldn't. I would at least hit it with something just a little bit lighter. But we're going to do this and see, and it'll go. And of course, it'll, you know, it'll be a little smoother whenever you actually try to strip some of this off. That is looking pretty good. I'm liking it. And these weren't really in horrible shape. I've seen worse. But boy, those fork seals sure are, though. And some of these, man, like that other bike that's lurking in the background in here, those fork legs, those fork sliders are bad. They're definitely going to need some treatment. We're getting there. We'll move on to the 2000 grit. And I don't have a lot of this stuff left, so I got to be careful because I got to do both of these. But this stuff, when you do it, will feel almost like paper. You don't want to pull too hard on this stuff because you can tear it pretty easy. This is looking nice. Boy, this is coming around. I've only done this a few times. I did this on a 2008 Sportster on the channel. I'm sure a lot of y'all, if you're subscribed, have seen it. That was the first time I've done this. I've seen it a lot. I've seen it done. And I wasn't brave enough to do this on my old Softail, just for whatever reason. Just because, you know, once you start cutting into this, you know, you've cut into it. You've signed yourself up to either replace it or powder coat it or chrome it or just, you know, continue with it and finish it. But this works. There's a lot of info on the webs about this. For polish, I just use Mother's Mag and aluminum polish. I actually use this stuff on rocker boxes and cam covers and stuff like that. It's pretty good stuff. It works. And there are ways to use this stuff and actually buff this out better. But we're just going to use the old basic rag and elbow grease method. I do think that there are some spots that are still on these fork sliders that I might have to hit again, but we'll get the polish on them first and then decide. And this part can take a bit to get it done right. You got to really, one thing about this aluminum polish is you got to scrub it on there. And time for the money shot. Get us a good side-by-side here. I'm going to try to hold this while I do it so you folks can see that. But, oh man, look at that. Looks like a mirror almost. I don't know how much that's showing up. Golly, what a freaking difference. Always amazes me. All this was hiding underneath this stuff all those years. Outside here. That looks good. I don't really see any spots. I see a few small scratches just that we can't fix that were already there, and you saw how easy it was. Anybody can do this. Now we do have right there, that's where there was a sticker. I mean, if you wanted to, you could get something to kind of get any of that goo off or just keep working it with sandpaper, but it's going to be on the inside. This one has it as well right there. Bring it in a little closer here. Show the before and after. What a difference for very little work. There are a few spots in here. You can kind of see, probably doesn't show on camera, but you can kind of see some almost like waviness. And that's where I might go through there with some of that 2000 grit, hit a few spots and repolish it, but it's probably not really necessary. That looks fantastic. What a difference. And this one over here, really, the sliders that were on here, it's the same freaking sliders with the original coating or whatever you want to call it. This one actually is not too bad. Neither was this side. I mean, you could hit it with some regular polish, but I prefer this over here. So I'm going to do the other side, and we'll take a look at both of them together when we're done. I do believe this is going to be quitting time for this video. Don't feel like we got a whole lot done, but we definitely got a lot cleaned up. Can't argue with the fork sliders. Man, they look a lot better. Might do a little touching up on them after we replace the fork seals, but we'll see at that time. Also over here, if you take a look on both sides, cleaned up our fender bolts here, did a little polishing on them. So now they're going to look nice. And even got this little bolt right here, this pinch bolt down here. That was like basically solid black before, just with a lot of gunk. So that's going to look good, especially when we get that wheel on. When you guys weren't looking, I worked on this top clamp with the same polish. Didn't really take that long. It just came around pretty good. And even pulled our pinch bolts up here. You can see those were pretty corroded before, and cleaned behind them as well as the bolt. Just kind of gives it a nice look when your eyes go right to it. Now, one thing I didn't do, I did not do any polish on the frame. I usually do that. I'm still going to do that. But the reason is there are just so many rust spots back here on this side. And then if you get over here, of course, more of the same down in here. I think I'm just going to do a little, you know, Rust-Oleum restoration on these. I'm going to try to find a color, a black that's, you know, kind of a semi-gloss that'll work on this, and then I'll just, you know, cover everything up. It's not great. It's not the right way to do it. Ideally, you would recoat the frame, but it'll give it a little more use, hopefully. We'll sand it down and all that kind of stuff. But this is just too much to try to touch up, and I just don't like it. I hate to put the fender on there when it's been painted and all that. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that another time. So when we get back with you guys, I think where we're going to at least start is going to be on the tank and the rear fender. Now, we don't have a whole lot to do with those two, but we'll at least start with that. For the tank, honestly, it's just mocking it up just to make sure everything works, because it is a brand new tank that we ordered. Of course, that doesn't always mean it's going to mount up smoothly. And then for the rear fender, really what it is just here on the back where the seat came all the way to the end. There were some mount holes there from that really kind of dinky tag light combo thing that was on the back. I'm going to do a little bit of trimming on that. Once we get those two things done, there's a lot of other things we can jump into, so we'll just have to wait and see. Well, folks, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I just said a moment ago, we're going to start when we get back with that tank and that rear fender, and from there, not really sure where we're going to go. We got a lot of things we still need to do on this bike, and a couple of things I think that are going to be pretty cool. So if you want to catch those videos, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. We'll chat with you next time.